Hi, I'm Tom. Welcome to Ledgemere Farm. Today I'm doing the dreaded task of taking the mowing deck off from my John Deere X530, putting the rototiller on, and there's two things that would make this a simpler job. One, if I was younger and didn't have arthritis, and two, if somebody else would just do it for me. About 20 years ago I had a brand new John Deere GT 225, and changing attachments on that was just a breeze. Everything was so simple. I also had a concrete floor then, which did help, but I had a 42-inch deck, which came off really easy. It was lighter, and I was only about 30 years old. When I bought the X530 a few years ago, I thought I was doing myself a favor looking towards the future with power steering and hydraulic lift. Unfortunately, the tractor only came with a 54-inch deck, which is a really nice mowing deck. It's really heavy duty and does a nice job mowing, but it weighs a ton. I figured out a system how to take it off that makes it relatively less painful, and so putting it on, taking it off is not really the part that generally is so painful. A lot of times it's just picking it up and moving it, and the next thing is putting that rototiller on, because that rototiller is a hydraulic tiller, so it's powered by a little hydraulic pump that runs off the tractor, and it does a wonderful job rototilling, but it's got about 5 gallons at least of hydraulic fluid in it, and just the thing itself is really beefy and massive. And even though it's got some wheels on it and you can kind of pull it along with the tines, you have to kind of lift it up a little bit just to get it into place, and then there's 2 pins on the back that you have to kind of lift up and go over, and it has to go on just right, and there's no room for any of this because then the front part of the frame won't line up right. And then on the front there's 2 more pins, so the back ones go in this way and the front ones come up like this, and then there's 2 little dogs that are on a swivel that come up, so one on each side, and then you put a pin through and it locks those dogs on, and then you put the belt on and good to go. And it sounds really simple, and in theory it's really simple, but in practice it's always a little bit of a struggle for me, and particularly because you have to put some boards under the back tires. And the reason being for that is if you don't bring the tractor up about this much, what happens is that drive pulley will catch on the transmission and you end up just pushing the whole rototiller backwards instead of driving over the mounting bracket. So you have to back up onto something, and that's not really the hard part either. Like I said, the hard part is you have to lift up that tiller. There's no really good place to do it, and get it on those back pins and then latch the front. And so we're gonna go do that, and then I'm gonna see if I could fix the charging problem on my farmall 200. I've had an issue with it for a couple years, and it hasn't really been a problem. I've been able to run it for as long as I wanted to, then I just put the trickle charger back on it. But it's one of those things that's broken and I want it fixed. I don't like broken things. So let's go ahead and do the rototiller, the mower, and work on that. But first, let's go take a look at the broiler chickens and see how they're doing. I went over to my sister and brother-in-law's yesterday. Usually I get a 1,000-pound tote, but I have a lot less cows this year. Those of you who watched last year saw I had like 13 cows, and now I only have 4. And so 1,000 pounds of corn at a time, I'm afraid the rats will get into it and it just might go bad. So I got 300 pounds here. And if you look back, and I'll put a link at the end of the video, we went over to my sister and brother-in-law's last fall, and while they were harvesting corn with the combine and blowing that up into the grain bin, and so they have a dryer on it and they dry it and they mix oats in with it. So it's primarily corn with oats mixed in, and it's a wonderful feed for all the livestock I have. The chickens love it, the sheep love it, cattle. I finish off the cows and sheep on it at the end of the year, and it does a really nice job. It also, when I feed it to my laying hens, it makes that yolk really stand out bright orange. It's not that pale yellow that you'd get with a store-bought egg. And so those yolks on my hens, the really a nice bright orange, and they stand up. It doesn't kind of go like this. So just another testimony of feeding chickens a few different things besides just layer pellets. And I mix in, because we live in Maine, I mix kelp in with it, and sunflower seeds and I mix the oyster shells in. They have free choice oyster shells as well, but I also just mix it a little bit with the feed, and I don't feel like I'm force feeding the oyster shells, because if they don't want it, they just will peck around it and they won't eat it. But regardless, I'm going to take some of this up and mix it in with my grower pellets that I bought. I'm almost done with this little box or a little bag of chick starter. The chickens they're a little bit over a month old now, and so they've got just about a month left, and we'll go up and take a look at those. But first, let's mix up a little bit of this and take it with us up there, and then we'll get back to tractoring. The wind's picked up again, and they're talking rain again this afternoon. So I'm just mixing in a little bit of this here, and then we'll go bring it up to them. And I'm never going to switch over to it completely, but I'm going to go over to about 50-50 broiler crumble and corn. It ends up saving you a lot of money, or saving me a lot of money, because I can get 300 pounds of corn and oats for 70 bucks, and the broiler crumbles are about 15 or 16 bucks right now. They're on sale this month, but I've got some pictures of the mid-50s with my father, my brother, and sister with trying to get the chickens in at night. And for a while, Dad was free-ranging his broilers. He had these big range feeders out there, and it worked out pretty well, but he lost a lot to predators. It's not a new thing, you know, and I know people have free-ranged their chickens forever, but I mean, as far as, you know, a lot of broiler chickens, he would have thousands and thousands out there in the field with the free range, and then they would just all come back in at night. The problem was, you know, they were easy pickings. So I got the grain here, and now I'm just going to fill this up, and you can see how much easier it is to do water with this. I'm going to start taking the light off during the day and just keeping it on at night if they need it. You can notice with broilers, one thing about them is they grow so fast they never really feather out very well. They'll always look kind of like this. And you can see that little blackbird right there compared to a broiler. And that broiler is actually pretty small compared to like this one right here. You can see the size of these things. These things are huge. You know, they're double handful already. That just did is took the tension off the drive belt, and now I can get the belt off and unhook the front. See under here, this is the draft link, right? And then This right here is the stud, right where my finger is. Behind this draft link there's a stud. And you see it right there? It's kind of rusty. So that notch right there has to go up underneath, and then this dog right here, this hook, has to go forward and up over the top and then latch here. So I mean, I think we all know that the people who design these don't work on them. So I've got that dog up over that stud, and I had to put a jack on it, kick it, use a pry bar, hammer. Actually, I think what I'm going to end up doing is save my pennies and buy a cyclone rake and put that on the Cub Cadet and leave this on here and never take it off again, because I do need the rototiller in the summer for going in between the rows and cleaning up the beds and stuff, but this is really a nightmare putting this on. Last year I had a guy tell me I was making this way more difficult than it needed to be, and I was like, clearly you don't own one of these. One problem about a reverse tine tiller is it takes stuff and it goes this way, and then you can see I've got a nice big hunk of wood jammed in there, and the only way to get it out is with a crowbar. Sometimes you can get it out with a hammer, sometimes you can just turn it off and turn it on a couple times and that'll kick it out, but sometimes it's just stuck. The hydraulic lift lever broke off. Not bad for 117 hours. Things are already falling off it. I've tested this before and it didn't really show me that it was charging. I'll try it with this voltmeter. The first thing I do is I got chocks underneath these wheels that first make sure it's not going to roll off on me. 1/3. Switch on. Forget about that. So with it just plugged in, backlight on, 6.225, and then tractor running. So like I said, the gauge doesn't move. It's a brand new gauge, and maybe the gauge is bad, maybe the VR is bad, maybe the generator's bad. I've never had trouble starting it. It always starts, and it runs for as long as I want it to. And when I go to trickle charge it, it's not usually down very much. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm just going to check the generator and make sure that works before I go any deeper. On a 6-volt generator, you've got an armature side and a field side. So the first thing you want to do, essentially what you're going to do is you're going to complete a battery circuit through an electric motor. And by doing so, that'll make this pulley turn if the motor's any good. So what I'm going to do is take the field side is the ground. So you take a jumper, and I've got these little alligator clips here with jumpers on them. I'm going to go from that field side to a ground, which generally the engine block or something attached to the engine block makes a good ground. So there's half of the circuit there. The other half of the circuit, because this is a positive ground tractor, so the positive goes to the ground here. I'm not going to touch this. I've already got everything grounded. What I'm going to do is take a jumper, hook it to the negative terminal, because the negative is what actually starts the tractor. Take the other end of this cable from the battery, and right now I've just got it hanging. So what's going to happen is, in theory, if this generator's any good, I've just made an electric circuit from the battery through the electric motor, which is the generator, back to the battery again. So that makes a complete circuit. So in theory, if I were to touch this on the armature side, that'll make that generator spin. So let's try that. Well, it looks like the generator's good. I'm going to put some never sees on these little bolts, or these pan screws that hold the voltage regulator on, because some days that'll have to come back off. And I want it to be a quick job to change that, not an all-day job, because I have to easy out some screws. All the electric parts anymore. I think everything's got a design life of not very long, because they want you to buy a new one, and if it lasts for a long time, then you're not buying anything, and they don't like that. My parents, when they first got married, they bought a General Electric refrigerator, and it was still going in the 1990s when they moved, but Mom just wanted a new fridge, and so she bought a new one. I think she's been on 2 or 3 since then. I do have another generator I can try, I guess, even though that one in theory is working. I don't know what else could be causing this thing to not charge. There's not a lot involved in it. You've got a generator, a voltage regulator, an ammeter, and the associated wiring. That's pretty much it for a charging system on a little 6-volt positive ground tractor. I'll have to think about that a little bit, I guess. If you have ideas, comments, questions, concerns, leave them in the comments below. I'd love to hear what you have to say. I think I'm going to call it a day. Thank you for watching. I hope you have a great Easter for those of you who celebrate Easter. And we'll talk to you next time. Thank you.